Okay, so this is going to be the quick of it. You want to know what this is about? Let's jump right in and show you. Select an editable poly object, load it into the system by selecting the preview panel. You'll see the UV map is there pre-rendered, right? Okay. We did not have an unwrapped modifier on the modifier stack, so one was added for us. It is set to map channel 1. We have map channel 1 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is green. Whatever is green is being displayed. If the button is black, that means that there's data that exists in that map channel. Okay, let's continue in. So I want to make this as easy as I can on myself. So what I would do here is, and I recommend doing things like this, you can use your smoothing groups as a starting point, or your material IDs as a starting point, or loop, etc. as a starting point. So I'll select smoothing groups. I think that's a decent starting point. So now I'm going to go through and polish this up for what I think would look best. Now, what you'll see here is that I'm selecting more faces than someone might assume I would want to select. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm selecting different elements, okay? So if I want to create different elements on an object, I can do this and then process it through the system. So let's double click. And after this one, we'll go ahead and left click SSUV. Okay, so that breaks that out, creates elements from those selections. Okay, and solves them for us as well. So they're pre-solved, but we'll come back to that later. Okay, so I'm just going to make this nice and quick, just a few more. And we'll do these as well. And it's by no means perfect, but we're just getting a nice example here. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like. I'll Control A, and I'm going to select my packing method. Okay, and you see I have that packed here. I'm going to open up this preview window so you can get a better look. I'll right click, select 1024 so you get a better preview render. And there's our layout for now. Okay, now if I want to, I can change the packing here. Okay. Sure, we get that flash window because we're rendering out the UV map for it to be displayed in the UI. Okay. So let's say that's pretty good. Let's just leave it just like that. Great. So I can turn that off. I can refresh this so it looks better. We were using the larger image and the smaller UI component, so we didn't have to render out extra images. Okay. And that looks pretty good. I mean, I would clean it up more, but you know, you get the idea of how to use the tool, right? So let's try one more thing here. Going to double click, control double click. Just going to go through the edge. Okay. I think we're good to go. I'm going to left click. And that just made something that I would have to clean up, but I'm going to go into edge mode. Double click on that edge. Left click to break. Turn on edge mode. Oh, I pressed the wrong one. There we go. Double click. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. I'm not sure exactly which edge I chose on the other side, so I'm just going to select this one. I think this is the correct one. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is just right-click SSUV. Now you see that broke that off and it packed everything for us nice and neat. Okay. I suppose I should add some very specific information to this, since this is the video to quickly onboard you, right? So when you do have an object selected and you load it into the panel, the backface button will reference the setting in the unwrap modifier. And the same goes for the seams button. So we can toggle through the different seam sections and that will remain within the modifier. So if we were to switch objects and come back, it would stay what it was left at. Okay, so what else do we have here? Oh, this is a good way to close this video out. I don't want to make this too long, but I'd like to do this. Okay. So I'm going to deselect, not have anything selected. I'm going to click that preview panel to clear it. I now have two editable poly objects. I'm going to select them both. And if I left click, nothing happens, but you'll see here in the info mini bar, which we'll talk about later, it informs us that if we'd like to iterate the selection and add an unwrap modifier to each, and then complete the function that we expect it to be completed, and that works with a lot of the features in SSUV, then we'll have to actually hold Alt. So I can Alt left click and get that to iterate, okay? And that's to save you from accidentally having a lot of items or objects selected in the scene and then accidentally clicking that image, the preview panel here, and then you'd have a lot of cleanup to do. So there's safety mechanisms built into a lot of this. The info bar is your friend if something is not behaving in the way that you may think it should. However, let's talk about how you like to see things work. I'm open to adjusting things. All right, let's see what happens now for an object set selection with a right click. Okay, so I'm selecting these two objects and I'm going to right click this panel. Now when I right click, it's going to add an instanced UV modifier. There we go. So now I can go into face mode, select all, and I'm going to pack that. So now we have both of those objects with one unwrap modifier and they are packed into the same UV space. I'm now going to collapse that out and go to another example here for you. I'm going to duplicate this selection. At this point, I'm going to select all of them. Well, let's clear this off just to save any confusion. I'm going to select all of those objects, right-click to add an instance modifier. Do the same thing with the packing. Okay, there we go. Now at this point, if I select this object and render it out, we only see the UV data for that single object. Well, I forgot which other objects are in this instance modifier. How will I ever find those? Well, you'll find out that a lot of these features in SSUV, a lot of the buttons in the UI are multi-purpose. So a lot of them will use modifier keys, right click, left click, and they'll perform different functionalities based upon different states of what you're working on. It's going to be kind of a wild ride to learn, but I've tried to make it as smooth as possible. I think you guys will like this. So let's just get back to this because it's pretty basic. I'm going to left click, and what's going to happen is all of the other objects that are included in that instance modifier or are using that instance modifier are then selected. So now I can click the panel. Now we have a preview of exactly what we wanted to see. Okay. And just for the sake of the curious, right, let's turn off the setting for auto add unwrap modifier. I'm going to collapse these objects, select one, go back up to the panel here. Let's actually clear that out first. I'm going to select this object and click. And it says the object requires an unwrap modifier. See settings for the auto handler. The auto handler is that setting I turned off. So remember, this info bar is your friend, and I'll show you more about that later.